Lots of imagery today in our readings. 23,000 people killed. Moses and his sheep, herding his sheep. Manure. There's two images that strike me today, and maybe it's because I'm longing for spring. And that's the burning bush from the Exodus reading we heard, and from the gospel we just heard, the fig tree. In the Exodus story, we hear of a bush that is on fire but doesn't burn up. It is not consumed. It is not removed. And in Luke, we hear of a fig tree that doesn't bear fruit, but is close to being removed by the owner. We might say the judgment is upon it. But the axe is stayed by the desire of Christ, if I may put that Christ figure on the gardener, to work with the tree, us, to bear fruit. The bush is used in Exodus to get the attention of Moses, which begins a theophany, the appearance of God. The fig tree is used as a heads up, if you will, that God is trying to get our attention, telling us that the clock is ticking. Now, I think that we all should have a burning bush in our lives. Why else would we be here today? Something along the way has happened to get us to stop and investigate. Somewhere, sometime, we've heard the voice of God or felt God's presence in our lives. Now think where that may have been. Was it a miracle like the burning bush that Moses encountered that pulled him away from his intended path and caused him to go in another direction? Or maybe it wasn't supernatural at all. Maybe it is a call, a desire in your heart, in your mind, to go down a path that seems to be inviting you onto it. In our day of having seen everything, God's job of getting us to heed His call, to follow His path and mark our journey with God must be very difficult indeed. Not many of us are willing to go out of our way to explore the unexplained, to make ourselves vulnerable to the experiential, to the adventurous part of our journey. We look for certainty, and if it isn't there, then we don't go out of our way for fear of uncertainty. The burning bush caused Moses to go out of his way. It was for Moses uncertainty, something that defied logic, that began the adventure of freeing a people. And uncertainty begins the adventure of freeing ourselves. In Luke, Jesus tells the parable of the fig tree that isn't bearing fruit. The owner of the fig tree tells his gardener to chop it down. And the gardener asks him to let him fertilize it and give it one more year. This parable is told by Jesus in response to the questions that Jesus himself brought up regarding people possibly dying because of their sins. Jesus responds to his own questions by saying that bad things do happen, but they happen to all people, sinners and non-sinners alike, and that life is fragile, and we will all die and will be judged. The fig tree in his parable represents that even for sinners, God shows mercy. And that this great gift of life, this adventure, should be used while there is still time to fulfill God's intended relationship between each other and with God. And you hear me use adventure and journey quite often. The two together sound like a Six Flag ride. The journey of adventure. Or maybe even better, the adventure of journey. Well, that is the way I try to look at life. That is the way I want to look at life. I want those burning bushes in my life that lead me away from my mundane paths of routine. I want that fig tree in my life to remind me that life is short, and it is a gift that I need to unwrap and use now, not place on a shelf out of fear for when I might really need it. God speaks out of both of these symbols presented to us today, the burning bush and the fig tree. And by investigating the burning bush, Moses was told by God that he would lead the Israelites out of bondage from Egypt, which prompted Moses to give two reasons why that wasn't a good idea. The first one, I am a nobody to do such a task. And the second one, I don't even know your name. People aren't going to believe this. Now that is the way a burning bush story should always start. Why? With reasons that this isn't a good idea. Think of it. When you said this to your own selves, this isn't a good idea, but it ended up being an adventure. The fig tree on this journey is there for us to know that God is with us. That no matter how we screw up, and we will, God's mercy is great, and all will be okay. Our task, brothers and sisters, is not to chop down the burning bush or to set fire to the fig tree. Because without these symbols to pull us forward, we have no adventure in life and no witness to give as our life to others. Amen.
Amen.